I'm not trying
Well,
to...
here we are in Australia. We're in Wagga Wagga, which is in the state of New South Wales. And Sister Murdoch, who is Lucy's grandmother, is sitting here. And we're in the home of Drew Williams. Drew is our Australian friend. And we're going to ask him a few questions and get a little bit more knowledgeable about Australia with asking Drew some questions.
And Lucy.
And oh, we also have, you can see the dog, and you'll never guess what this dog's name is. It's Lucy, Lucy Lou. And so we've got Lucy here in Australia doing a report back for Lucy in United States. And so, Drew, I understand you've lived in Australia your entire life, and if I'm correct, me and you are about the same age. Is that right?
I think you're a little younger than I am, but
Same
basically the same age.
Okay.
Oh.
And so we wanted mostly to have Drew speak to us a little bit so we could hear his accent and we could hear him talk a little bit about some Australia colloquialisms or just some things that are peculiar to Australia. Drew, do you have anything in particular to tell us?
Australia is a funny place. We have a lot of colloquialisms. We use a lot of rhyming slang. For example, Yanks are septic tanks, or Seppos.
Good.
What else?
One of the things I have had told me a lot, they've called me a bloke. You've never called me a bloke, Drew. Why haven't you ever called me a bloke?
I don't think it's ever come up in conversation. You're obviously not a Sheila.
So they call like just regular men blokes, and they call their friends. What do they call their friends?
Mates. Now, I have called you mate. I'm
He
sure
has.
of that.
Drew has called me mate before.
Elder mate.
Yes, that is correct. So, Sister Murdoch, are you a bloke? Sister Murdoch, back in.
Blokes are men.
Oh, blokes are men. So you're my mate in more ways than one. So okay. So we know we've learned that. And then usually, if you greet someone in Australia, and Drew, how will you greet someone when you see them just for the first time that day?
G'day.
G'day. And sometimes I've had some people say "G'day, mate."
Yeah.
And sometimes
That says hello, friend.
yeah. And sometimes I've heard them say, "G'day, mate. How you going?" Can you tell us that? Can you say that to me?
G'day, mate. How you going?
Yeah.
That's good. That's hello, my friend. How are you going?
Yes. And so
We shorten things.
yeah. And so I kind of think that I always respond back, "I'm good. How are you doing?" And I can't get used to saying "How you going" for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, any other colloquialisms you can think of, Drew, that are peculiar to Australia that...
I've been actually thinking about it now. I've gone blank. There's plenty of them. We call meat pies dog's eyes. We call English poms. We call I won't say that one.
On a car, Drew, the back part of the car you call a
boot.
A boot. We call it the trunk. Drew calls it the boot. On the front part of the car, you call it a
Bonnet.
A bonnet. We call it the hood. And so that's interesting difference.
And on the side part of the car, there's doors, and we call them doors.
Okay. And so we outside, if we looked outside, it's a kind of a cloudy day, but it's what's the temperature over here right now, you guys? The temperature out here in Australia is it's a kind of a cloudy day, and but we're in the autumn or the fall. They don't call it the fall over here; they call it autumn, and it's 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And that usually means it's probably about 14 Celsius. They go by Celsius over here, and
that's only recent. We never used to. Up until 1974, we were pounds and miles per hour and all that, and then they decided in their wisdom to change it.
Well, that is interesting because we drive on the left side of the road.
No, you drive on the wrong side of the road.
Whatever, we drive on the wrong side of the road. Anyway, but they changed to they used to have pounds, which were more similar to England, and they converted to dollars over there. Although their dollars are different than the American dollars, and most of their measurements, they go, when I say I'm running a mile, they look at me funny and they say we're running kilometers. And so the measurement system, the money system, everything's a little bit different. And like I was talking to you, Sister Murdoch, tell us about why it's the fall over here, autumn. Why is and it's springtime over there?
I don't know what you mean. It's just opposite of where we are.
We're in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the southern hemisphere. Drew knows the answer to that. We're in
And
the,
when you flush the toilet, in America it goes anti-clockwise. In Australia it goes clockwise. So go and check. Go on, off you go.
Yeah,
and
we
and
know that, but why?
if you believe that,
You've been watching too much Simpsons.
you've been watching too much Simpsons. Sometimes on Drew's Facebook, he calls himself Fred Flintstone. Why do you say that, Drew? Why do you say Fred Flintstone?
Well, I'm not a great fan of social media, and I had a boss that used to go to Bali quite often, and she didn't want to pay the price of an overseas text. So I joined Facebook, and that was the reason why. And I can't figure out how to change it.
Okay. Well, we'll conclude this interview. Drew, thank you so much. Drew's a great friend. He's someone that will do anything for anyone over here in Australia, and so he's a great friend of ours in the church and otherwise. And thank you, Drew. Is there any final comments you want to give to my 6th grade daughter, Lucy, for her Australian report? Anything about Australia or anything else you want to say?
We're a friendly country. We have a lot of things that are unique to Australia. We believe, of course, this is the best country on the planet. We have really, really strict gun laws. And now our president is called a prime minister, and he's nothing like Donald Trump.
Thank heaven.
Yes, we're a bit worried about old Donald Trump over here. I'm sure they made up some nicknames that I can't say. It's a very different place, although we're very close to our American friends. We've fought in half a dozen wars together and always on the same side, which is unusual. And
I might mention while Drew's just thinking for a minute that Drew and I are close to the same age. We were both at the time when the Vietnam War occurred, and Drew was one that went in from the Australia side to the Vietnam War and served in the Vietnam for how long, Drew?
I done 6 tours with the 1 RAR, 2 RAR, then I got seconded to the Americans to try and keep your National Guard alive.
Uh-huh.
Apparently Australian soldiers were very well trained and American soldiers weren't so. That's why you had such high casualties. But I did my best and I stayed in there a long time, longer than I should have.
So 6 tours is how many years, would you say?
That's 3.5 years active combat.
3.5 years active combat. So I really admire Drew for a lot of reasons, but probably as much as that as his service that he's given to his country and actually ours. He was serving a couple of his tours. I guess he was over in Fort Leavenworth in the United States, and the other
Fort Bragg.
and Fort Bragg. So you might look those up there in the United States. Drew was in the United States at that time as well. So
and I was silly enough to volunteer.
and he did volunteer, and I didn't volunteer. My draft number back then was 225, and they only got to about 100 and some, and so I didn't get drafted, and Drew volunteered, so served our country in the Vietnam War. So thank you, Drew. I appreciate your giving us a little closer look into Australia for Lucy. And Lucy, is there anything you want to say? Woof! Luce!
She'll bark at you if you whistle.
Okay, well, that's all from Australia. And Lucy, I hope this is a good idea about what you wanted to convey for Australia. We love it over here. We think the people are awesome. That's why we call them Aussiesome. Okay, see you, Lucy. Bye.